tricky of where things go. So like when you get a big gap up in this market, like we're having today, so the gap's going to be 4.5%, 5%. If you look at the TQQ, is already up 15%. So yeah, you're gapping up around 5% today, give or take. All right, so that's a giant gap. In this market, there's been two things that have happened. The big gaps have not held, but we haven't been really this oversold either, right? So we have like this big gap up, and now what we're going to have to do is have a really acute understanding of the range in the markets and where all the booby traps are. So, if we start to push off at the open, like say we take out these pre-market highs, then, we have some room up to 180. Now, that 180 is going to be very, very key. Like that's going to be probably the spot where, we're going to have to be more careful, because you're going to have big resistance that's faded off quite a bit in the last, if you really go back, it's really like the last 10 days, right? Since the 12th, like this, and it's never like a sweet spot, right? There's like a fudge factor when you're dealing with resistance. You can see like, right, you got peaked over here, showed your little wiener a couple times, and then it came back. So we have like a zone of resistance here, and that's where we'll have to be more apt to watch the market a little bit closer on smaller term time frames to see like what happens. Now, granted, we've come a long way, so we're due for a bounce. In the measure of, though, due for a bounce, like what does that really mean? And what's the context and how far can it go? So we have to be mindful of like these different resistance levels. If we fade back over here, then the market will just roll back over. Now, the market doesn't do the same thing over and over every time. So there's patterns in the market, but like once you've done the same playbook and the same play like 5-6 times, which is like, right, these opening gaps have faded off, then the market will throw you a double Lutzy and go the other way. So there's a shot that, we do start breaking over this and squeeze. Now, it doesn't mean it's the bottom of the market. What we need to start to do is pay attention and say, well, we haven't had like a pop in a long time. Do people that have been holding stocks, like did they use that pop as an opportunity to get liquid and sell positions that they've been holding on to or that they've got losses on? Or is it the start of something? One thing to always remember about markets is that markets bottom usually when the news is the worst. They bottom when the news is the worst. So like, they start to crash and then the news gets worse and worse and worse, but the markets start to bottom as the news gets worse. Because the market is a forward-thinking mechanism. So, we could have a short-term bottom as, right, people are feeling pretty down about everything these days. So, we could have a short-term bottom here. And if that's the case, then I think we could get this thing into probably this 200 range on the QQQs, which still gives us another kind of 10% of upside. So these are the different levels that I'm kind of watching and, that we've got to trade around. And you guys, like when you're doing this, like, make notes of like where all the sweet spots are in the market, because you're going to get, you get selling come out sometimes out of nowhere, and you'll often be like, oh, fuck, like, why did it bounce there? Why did it sell off there? And it's usually because, right, you have, you got some, levels and stuff that are peaking around here. So let's talk a little bit about, the watch list and what the game plan is for today. So if you go, like, we trade this TQQ, which is the 3X ETF. We trade this thing every day. I can't chase a 15% gap in this, can I? So this thing is going to gap up. Let's see what's opening up right now. It's up 13%. So we can't chase it up 13%. So what I got to see at the open on this is some type of pullback at the open. So you got a gap fill at 36. It's probably not going to get to 36 if the market holds. But usually, if you can fill back, like, say, half the gap, shake everybody out, maybe even bring some shorts in, and then you start to hold at your 9 EMA, your 20 EMA, some level of support, then what we'll start to get is some kind of rebounding action, and we'll catch everybody one way, and then we can go the other way. You know, that'll be something. Look at this MGM, man. I was trying to load this thing at $6 the other day. Mother trucker, right? Mother trucker. So we want a little bit of pullback in, you know, some of these names. Same thing, like, you know, we've got this nugget. You know, we were trading this yesterday, and you're up 24%. You know, this is probably showing like a bottoming pattern. Now it's a matter of, see, like you got a bottoming pattern developing here, right? And you got some upside on these things. You got a bottoming pattern here. This looks amazing on the daily chart. You know, you're holding the $6 range. Say you come down and test, and you test that level. So you're building up a range, you're building up a support there. That's really important. So now you're starting to come out of that. So how do we handle that, though? Because it's up 24% pre-market. So you can't chase it. Even if you saw at the open, like say you saw like a little flag or something like that, that's not anything. What we need is a big pull on this thing. Let it shake out a little bit. Let it pull back. See how it starts to react around the VWAP area intraday. See how it starts to react around its moving averages intraday. And then as that happens, that's when we'll get ourselves, you know, a potential opportunity. Even though it's still up, like even though it's up a lot this morning, it doesn't mean it can't keep going. You got to remember like where a lot of these stocks were, or these are ETFs, but you got to always remember like where a lot of these things were. See, this thing was at $104, right? So you're going to have like, you know, you can have some room to kind of roll with this thing as long, and you can see now it's starting to come out. Yeah, but we just need a little bit of a pullback here, and then we're going to be good. Now, these 3X ETFs, you can't really hold them for too many days. They are, you know, specifically, they're specifically day trading vehicles. I mean, you can hold them for like a day or two. You can see here the 9 EMAs on this is like at $15. So you got some room to go. We can't chase the gap up. It was up 20% yesterday. We got to let it pull back. If it pulls back, right, and it starts to hold and build, that's when we'll look at potentially looking at this for potential long. Now, you're starting to see pre-market, a lot of moves, bottoming patterns happening here too. See how the volume pattern is shifting here? So you're starting to see it even out. How much was the market down yesterday? 800 points? Something like that, 700 points for most of the day. Nice green day on that, huh? How much was the market down the day before that? Quite a bit, right? Nice green day. You start to see what's happening here? There's a shift in the tape. There's a shift in how the stock is moving now. There's a shift between buyers and sellers. Who's in control? Now you're starting to see this thing start to round. Now, will this thing get back into $150? No, probably never. Or maybe, you know, 5-6 years from now. But it doesn't mean it can't get into the 50s and 60s on a short squeeze. Can it? Look at this thing. Woo! So that one looks pretty good. CCL moves a little bit worse, but what do you start to see here? Even with the market down, starting to bottom out a little bit. You see now you got a big push. Can't chase these things up at the open, though. You chase in this market, you die. You chase, you die. You chase, you believe in unicorns. You chase, you believe in Santa. And you chase and you believe that those pecs you have are not really man boobs. But they are moobs, aren't they? You chase, you die. Your moobs are not boobs. They're just moobs. So we got to go in and just be mindful of where things are going. All right? Let these things pull back. 9 EMA, 20 EMA. We call that first pullback buy. So you're going to pop up that first pullback. See where it holds? Then you're good to go. Does that make sense? Comprendes? Good. Yeah, what I mean by first pullback buy, this is like, you know, like your classic, you know, classic kind of pull. Like, for example, like, you know, we took, right, UVXY short yesterday. This is like your classic first pullback buy short, you know, and you would do this on the long side. See, like how you had this big gap yesterday, right? It was like 90 and then get down to 80. Look at this thing at $50 now, right? You just kept 100 shares of this thing short, you'd have 5 G's. Right? So see how this thing pops down? Boom. Like it pops into these EMAs and then it rolls over. So that's like your first pullback buy. So that's kind of like what you want to do on the stocks to the upside today. You're going to have a gap up, let it pull back, hit into these MAs, then you get a candle to hold and then you shred it down. Make sense? Good. If I could turn back time, if I could find... Look at this thing fucking getting smoked today. What a joke. You know what? I tried time to top on this thing so many times. Look at this thing down, $50. This thing will be like $10 in a couple days. Here we are just watching it. So what's the other cruise line that we've got here? Oh, yeah. Norwegian. Same thing. You got a couple green days. 27 million shares of volume, so there's a little accumulation going on. Watch this bad boy. I think this one's going to have upside too. You're going to have some nice, easy kind of rounding patterns on these. Now, don't marry these things, Something like this, you get this thing in a $15, $20 zone in the next couple days. I mean, that's pretty good. We don't need too much more than that. What just happened here? Dun, 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 dun. Anybody know why this TC1000 shifted like that? Fuckers. Hold on. Oh, there. I like it right on the edge. You know what I mean? Know what I mean. So add this one to the list too. Boeing is another one that's starting to show that bottoming pattern. You got room up in this into the 9 EMA. Now, granted, the gap on this one is huge too. But you got a little bit of action on this thing. I think you're going to have room probably into the 140s. Yeah, I think you can probably get this thing into the 140s, over the next couple days if the market holds. Key word is if the market holds. Now, the thing with Boeing, if you look at it right now, you are at, you're gapping up 16%. You can't chase this thing, can you? You got to let this thing pull back. You can't chase any gap up today. You chase, you die. In this market, it has not rewarded chasers at all. You got to wait for the pullback. Once that thing pulls, watch and see how it starts to act. Around 9 EMA, 20 EMA, that first dip, that first pullback, and you're good to go. Man, that thing is hot. ENPH, you know what? This thing's got a remount of the 200 SMA here. Love this name. This thing beat on earnings, was flying. Came down from 60 down to 20. Starting to remount over these MAs. Man, I think this one probably takes out this 9 EMA and starts to rebound. Watch this range here today. This is your sweet spot. See that test? Oh, yeah. We get over that spot, it's going to go. All right? So you got a little bit of room. If you get over that, I think this thing takes it to 40, and then we're off to the races. Beyond that, all we need is a couple ETFs, and we're good to go. Does that make sense? Yes, spaces, they're all going to move very similar. So you can go with space too. You can add that. That's fine. It's got a lot of movers. Good. That's the game plan. We wait for the pullback. We see if the dip holds, then we're good to go. Let's make this thing happen. Short watch list, we don't need much today. I'm really depressed about this TVIX stuff. All right. Cool. Let's get this thing going, peoples. I'll be in the chat room all day doing what I do.